are now officially on live TV. Oh, geez, you weren't ready? Oh, look at that. We've already made our first blunder on the very first episode. See, this is where communication comes in, everybody. You've really got to make sure you communicate well with your co-host and not just stare at your phone and say, yeah, oh, that sounds great.
Flaming me right now. Absolutely flaming me.
All right, how we doing? We good?
Alrighty. What up, guys? What's going on?
Got a couple different cameras, so we're going to be kind of shooting our heads around a little bit here. So, hey everybody, welcome to the pilot episode of Fitlosophy. I'm Dan, the Fit Ferret.
I'm Omar.
And we, right now, we are stationed at All Access Fitness in Shrewsbury. Awesome facility, great facility. You can probably see a little bit of it in the background there through the window. We decided to open up the curtains and let the good in.
Take a peek.
So, what we're going to be doing with Fitlosophy is we're going to start with a singular approach. And that approach is we want to adapt and grow. We don't want to hold this to anything or any one topic in specific. We want to be able to kind of explore and figure out what those connections are that intertwine between fitness, the power of willpower, everything that encompasses the exercise science of the body, your mobility, what you're doing for your nutrition, and how you situate and set yourself up for every single workout. We've got lots of plans in the future to do interviews with chiropractors, massage therapists, personal trainers, athletes, and everyday weekend warriors as well. We really want to get the whole scope. We want to talk to professionals, we want to talk to athletes, and we want to talk to people that are just like you. So, without further ado, Omar.
Ado.
What is Fitlosophy to you?
So, kind of touching upon what Dan said with adapting and growing, I wanted to make it clear that it's not just kind of going where the wind blows. There is order to the chaos, and you have to be methodical with your approach. You have to really be structured in your thinking and bringing awareness to the areas that are relevant and need change. Kind of bringing your attention to your weaknesses and bringing those imbalances up. You know, understanding what your strengths are and using those to your advantage. So Fitlosophy definitely stems beyond just the physical realm, but also goes into the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect of things. And I myself am somewhat of an airy-fairy dude, quote unquote. I like to really ponder the mystical realm of things.
Did you just say airy-fairy?
Yeah, that's dude. People.
That's a good one. I've never heard that before. I like it.
But yeah, so I mean, I like to kind of discuss the qualitative aspect of things. Definitely not a numbers guy, but I love, trying to pick at the mind and understand things in different contexts and how you can go into something with the same approach but a different perspective.
Oh, very nice. Amen to that. That's one of the reasons Omar and I are definitely going to be working very well together when we run shows such as this is he basically said everything that I would like to say right there with that. Fitlosophy. Fitlosophy is it's a very spiritual experience, but not spiritual in the sense of religious. It's ritualistic. It's identifying, as Omar said, the very soul that connects the mind and the body as it relates to fitness. The body, we train by numbers. We use various integers such as volume, weight, time under tension, things in that nature. But without the mind, the willpower to take our body to that next level, to understand, where that point of failure is, you can't do one without the other. But now, all of a sudden, there's this third entity. There's the bridges, the spacing, the connections that intertwine both of those concepts. The science behind the exercise that you do, the mental drive behind it, and then we get the cross
spider web.
Yes! So, I think one of the first topics that we really want to tackle and talk about, this one's very near and dear to me because I can't tell you how many times I hear this as a fitness professional. And I'm sure a lot of fitness professionals out there too have encountered this exact same thing. You get a prospect that comes in and wants to talk training, goals, all that fun stuff, and they use these two themes over and over. I want quick results and I want to feel better about myself. And I look at that and I start to think, man, those are two ideas that should not be mutually exclusive, but unfortunately in the fitness industry, it is so rampant with that. You know, we tend to think that if we achieve this Adonis-like figure or statuesque shape, it's going to instantly make us feel better about ourselves. But what I've learned through my experience and coaching a lot of different people is it's the journey that really teaches you to respect yourself. It isn't the end product. The end product is a result of all of the hard work that you put in. But you can't get there quick. You can't get there easy. Yeah, there's a bunch of fitness professionals out there that push these 6-week programs that offer quick results. And I don't want you to think that they're lying to you, because they're not. Most of these 6-week programs are designed so well that they will deliver really good results if you follow them to a T.
Like a military practice.
Yes.
And like he said, the end result is really ongoing and cumulative. So when I try to bridge the gap between someone's mentality who's first looking into, feeling better about themselves and just getting into fitness, getting into the gym when they're, intimidated or scared to even step foot in here, I really try to pick at what was the first kind of initial thought that spurred them into coming into the gym. Like, why now? What exactly drew you in? Was it because someone may have insulted you, or someone may have kind of told you the truth? Unfortunately, the truth hurts sometimes, but if you had a friend or family member tell you, hey man, listen, you're getting a little bit out of control, you need to start going to the gym. And so at first it may stem from this extrinsic belief about yourself that, I want to look good for others, or I just want to have a nice beach body. But it comes down to your core drive, your why. Why do you want to get into the gym?
So glad you brought that up. I've got a really great bridge to take that. I want you to kind of keep running with that, but when you finish that up, I've got a really good bridge for the whys.
Oh, I'm actually done. You can go.
Oh. So Omar actually just hit right on the nail the point I wanted to drive home next. This is one of my favorite exercises to do with clients when I first start working with them. I call it the 5 whys. It doesn't have to be 5. It can be any number realistically, but 5 is a good number to shoot for. Less than that, and sometimes you miss it. More than that, well, if it takes more than that, it takes more than that. So here's the theory of the 5 whys. So first, somebody says to me, all right, I want to get fit. I want to have a good rockin' beach body. And I say, why? And I say, okay, well, think about it for a second. I want more self-confidence. Why? Well, I guess deep down I've felt, not very good about myself, and I think having this strength or looking this certain way will, bring me to a better understanding. Why? Well, now it's getting really tough. You are dissecting that down to the very thing.
Now it's just like, I don't know, I've run out of words.
So when you practice the 5 whys, the idea is you want to get to the core, the very depth of what it is that you're going to be able to use to drive yourself into these changes, these behavioral changes. Because let's face it, yes, the 6-week programs work well because it's a very rigid structure around behavioral change. But if after that 6-week ends, you don't pick up any of those new behaviors that you practiced for 6 weeks, you're going to literally go right back to where you started. And I mean, that in itself can be just damning to the soul. It can really hurt to end up in situations like that. That's where we get the yo-yo effect.
Yeah. And to touch base just real quick on 5 whys again, just to give you an example of what that may look like. Like he said, you may be thinking, okay, I want to, have a nice body, nice physique, get some mass on me, but that may change. Your why may be fluid. You may realize, I don't actually really care about the the Adonis figure or whatever. I actually care about moving better, being pain-free, being able to run around and play with my kids, being able to hike a mountain any day of the week, not having to, just feel like a stiff board all day. And like I said, that can definitely change, and I've learned firsthand that, there are multiple reasons to want to do the same thing, but they may not necessarily drive you to the core to actually do them. Some people have to think their way into doing, some people have to feel their way into doing, and I happen to be the feel their way into doing type. So I try to focus on the emotion that I feel once something is completed, which gets me closer, one step closer to where I want to be.
Nice. I love that. Taking your why and drawing parallels to it, with the activities that you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. I can tell you personal experience. I was a fat kid growing up. I would eat Kraft macaroni and cheese from the box as a snack. So you know how on the back it says feeds a family of 4? Apparently I was a family of 4. So I didn't have really great self-esteem. I mean, granted, I had some great friends. I had a lot of awesome support around me. So it never really manifested itself into anything terrible. But deep down, there would be nights where I just grab a roll of my own fat and I would look at it and just be like, "You're not welcome." And that's a very unhealthy mentality to have, to almost hate yourself because of physical attributes and qualities. Now, that being said, that was the initial kind of bridge for me. I used those negative feelings to start doing things. As I first started, I would do push-ups and sit-ups, nothing too crazy because I really didn't know what I was doing. It was like, I know I need to move more. I know I need to get strong and do stuff. And I would start by walking a mile. And what I started to notice is over the course of an entire summer, I had a manual labor job. Oh, thank you for the shout out, Tony. I'm glad you're loving this. We're having a lot of fun doing this. Not to get too sidetracked, but real quick, I did want to make sure that we mention, especially for our folks watching on Instagram, if you follow the links to our YouTube channel or our Twitch stream channel, if you have questions to ask or you want to shout out while we're doing the show, my monitor right here, we can see all that. Unfortunately, because we have the phones positioned a little bit far away to do the Instagram feed, we can't really see the questions that are popping up if you guys have any questions.
So for you guys on my page, feel free to ask the questions. I'll actually take a look at them intermediately, in between talking, but definitely feel free to ask those questions. I will see them.
Perfect. So segueing back into, the whole being the fat kid, taking the summer, starting to do things that are better for myself. I did a lot in a very short period of time, but without really realizing it. So after work, now again, let's organize these thoughts. So I got a manual labor job. I was doing stonemasonry work for the whole summer. I was working with my buddy and his father. After we'd get home from work, my buddy, who was really trying to help me stick with this, this new healthy lifestyle I was trying to adapt to, be like, "Hey, we just finished up work. Let's go jog a mile." I thought, "Are you kidding me? Jog? Jog a mile? What is this J word you're using?" But sure enough, 3 months went by, that walking a mile turned into jogging half a mile and walking half a mile. Then all of a sudden I was jogging a full mile. Then I was running a little bit, jogging, walking, running, jogging, walking. By the end of the summer, I was running an entire mile. Yeah, I felt like I was going to die by the end of it, but I was running miles. This is something I had never done before in my... Now, granted, I was in high school at the time, so I hadn't been on this earth for a long time, but I was running a mile. It was a milestone for me. All of a sudden, I stopped thinking so much about how I felt about my body, and I began to start focusing on how great it felt to accomplish something that seemed like such a Herculean feat before. That was just getting my feet wet, though. I started to drop weight, but that wasn't enough. Now all of a sudden I realized, okay, I've dropped a bunch of weight, but hey, maybe I can put some muscle on. Like, let's start working out at the gym. So my same buddy, really great friend, really awesome dude, I will tell you as a little segue here, if you can find yourself an accountability buddy, somebody to work with you, just as a friend working out, it is so much easier to get yourself into that uncomfortable zone if you've got somebody else that's kind of depending on you to show up. Because if you don't show up, well, you kind of screwed the pooch for them too, not just yourself. So having accountability is a super good thing. And if you're not really great, the time I wasn't, having accountability with yourself, having somebody else to lean on, not relying on, leaning on, can be absolutely invaluable in your adventure.
Yes, accountability, but how do you say that?
Accountability.
Accountability, buddy. You guys hear that? Jeez, it's coming up with some new words. All right?
Well, so I can't take complete credit for that one. That one is actually the brainchild of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who happen to be the creators of South Park, if you're familiar with them. There's a particular episode, if anybody knows which one I'm talking about, Butters, our good friend Butters, is referred to as someone's accountability buddy. And that's where I got that word from.
All right.
I did literally just say accountability buddy.
How'd they spell that, though?
That's pretty close. A little bit of a tongue twister.
So, to touch on Dan's journey, I think it's incredible that you went from a fat kid to being someone that can move not only well, but incredibly well, and you're still working on it. So it's like, if I came and told you at that moment when you were a fat kid, just starting out to run, a mile, walk at a turtle's pace for a mile, and I told you, yo, you're gonna have some crazy, patterning and squat form and open hips and open.
2 years ago, I ran my first beast. For anybody who's familiar with Spartan, that's like minimum 17-mile obstacle course race.
Beast.
Fat kid walking a mile, 15 years later, running 17 miles while also doing obstacles.
15 years, not 6 weeks. 15 years.
Yes, that's the real point that I want to drive home with that is quick results, while they are achievable, they're not sustainable. It's the little habits that you build day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year that start to snowball into these amazing things. Now, I mean, even getting up to that point where I did the beast, that was the first one. Before that was a super. Before that was a sprint. And each time I set that next milestone, that next goal, it was the hardest thing I had ever done. But now looking back on it, being able to conquer 17 miles, you look at 3 miles, and it's like, wow, a 5K is like a warm-up now. Right. Years ago, I would have looked at a 5K and been like, you're funny. Yeah, human beings can't do that. Human beings shouldn't do that. But again, it's that cumulative snowball rolling. You don't get there overnight. And if you respect the journey and respect the lessons that it will teach you as you go through, you'll get so much more out of it at your end result. And as Omar was saying, I mean, I'm 32 years old now. I'm still evolving, adapting, getting better, changing. Like, there's still things that I'm working on, trying to get better at, milestones that I'm trying to hit. Like, I'm not done. I'll probably never be done. To be honest, I think I'm going to go out the same way Jack LaLanne did. I'm going to be pulling tugboats across rivers when I'm 90 years old just because.
Yes, dude, that's the goal. That's really the game you want to play. You want to play the long game. Think of being sustainable. Make sure that your habits are something you can carry on for the rest of your life. If you are someone who binges and purges as a result of being on an intermittent fasting lifestyle, I call it, because truthfully I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting. I'm actually fasted right now, except I'm breaking it with this 5-calorie core. Actually, we shouldn't advertise.
Hashtag no ads.
Yeah, but if you have to understand what works for you and what doesn't, and really be honest with yourself to break out of those habits that are keeping you from that growth, because you're the only one who's going to be able to actually, guide yourself. You can have someone tell you, hey, you need to get in shape, hey, you need to do this and that. You can get a personal trainer, you can pay them all the money in the world, they still can't sweat for you. They're not going to be able to burn the fat away for you. So
what's that old saying? You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
No, that's it. So we're going to move on to our next topic in just a moment here, but I kind of want to recap because, dude, we just rattled off.
That was supposed to be the intro. So
there you go. So the points to take home here is Quick results are achievable but not sustainable. Find your why, the core of your why.
5 why hack.
And understand that you are the product of all your day-to-day behaviors. And change starts with one behavior. I'm going to give you guys my favorite little saying right here. Little bets and baby steps pave the way to great success.
I like that. Sounds like something my mother would have read to me.
Right, it's like a nice little limerick that you'd find in a children's book.
Fall asleep, wake up the next day, and you're Bill Gates.
Thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciate that shout out. You guys make an awesome team. Extremely interesting topic.
Sweet.
Found it.
Thanks, man. Alrighty, let's move
on
into
to
mobility. Alright, the M word. So everyone loves this word now, and it's becoming kind of a trend to talk about mobility work, I think. But I mean, for good reason. It's definitely something that's been, I think, undershadowed in the fitness game. I mean, you got guys putting up 300 pounds on a bench press and doing absolutely nothing for their shoulder mobility, and then they're walking around like this. I mean, you wonder how sustainable is that? Like I said, it's about the end game. It's about the long game, sorry. So how sustainable is that? You want to make sure that your training, yes, it is specific. For instance, if you're a power lifter, yes, you are hitting your competition bench, but you're doing the outside things that allow for those wheels to turn. And so stuff like like banded scat pulls, or any kind of mobility work that can actually yield some kind of noticeable change in a matter of a certain timeline. You want to be specific with the way you're going about doing your mobility, but you may not necessarily see it transfer immediately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to kind of build on that a little bit, we're talking sports specific. So now imagine you've got a 600-pound squat, but you've only got that 600-pound squat to dead parallel. Any deviation below that, and you don't have that squat. So what happens if you're in competition mode, you go to hit that squat, and you just grace below your parallel point? You're gonna bury your butt right in the floor, and you're probably gonna tear something.
You're going down.
So when we think mobility, we think about being strong in all the ranges of motion. Does that mean you shouldn't take your 600 squat pound to parallel and train for specifically that, since it's your competition weight? No, it means you should do that, but you should also have the mobility and the strength, so that way if there are deviations in it, you're not going to absolutely wreck yourself.
Right. Definitely mobility is about creating resistance and resilience and fluidity in the body. You want to be able to express the end ranges of motion in your, in every kind of joint that you have. And you talk about posture in the sense of it being a dynamic thing. Oftentimes we think of posture as like, all right, shoulders back, like this all the way hyper retracted position. But posture is not this static thing. It is dynamic. It's something that, what did you say yesterday? You said,
so
go ahead.
The only bad posture is the one that you spend too much time in. And that ties into the whole mobility, being able to move in every angle of range, being able to control your body in the 360 degrees that encompasses the world we live in. Mm-hmm. If you're only strong through this plane, or if your posture's only being challenged to hold you in this plane, what happens when you deviate to the other plane? Mm-hmm. You get hurt, you get injured. You set yourself up for nagging pains that won't go away. You end up in a chiropractor to realign your spine constantly because you're holding your posture in a static position that is not favorable to what you're trying to accomplish.
So I had a friend DM me the other day, and she said, I've been going to the chiropractor because she basically hurt her back. Her lower back is kind of agitated. And she is asking, okay, well, how do I get back in the gym? I really want to start, getting back into it. And she was basically worried that, she was going to have to spend the rest of her life going in and out of the chiropractor. And what I told her was, well, listen, the chiropractor can temporarily fix you, but you have to get at the root cause of why it's happening. For instance, is your QL tight? That QL stretch you showed me earlier, that really loosened me up, and now I'm definitely going to use that. And I'm going to use it as long as it works and try to see if there are more effective ways of doing that specific function. But basically, to circle back, the posture that you can't express is going to be the position that you're going to get hurt in. So if I am able to go into thoracic flexion very easily, but not extension, I'm probably gonna have a slip disc one way or another trying to bang out a 500-pound deadlift. So you really want to be strong in all ranges of motion.
Yeah. So to throw in a little bit of that, kind of tying in mobility, posture, fun stuff like that. So regards to the QL stretch, I really helped Omar open himself up today. But now here's the kicker. If he doesn't do anything to strengthen those muscles in this new range that he's unlocked, well, the body's going to revert back to that position. The whole idea of unlocking new ranges, the whole idea of opening up, doing mobility work, doing fascia release, stretching, is that you have now increased your ability to express more posture.
Yep.
But if you don't use it, you lose it. Which is a lot of times people are like, wow, I do all these stretches for my hamstrings, but then I just end up tight again the next day. And I say, all right, so after you stretch, do you try to express a really deep deadlift? Well, no. So you're not working the hamstring in this new unlocked range. Well, no. Well, why would your central nervous system, which already decided that was an unsafe range by tightening your muscle up, let you go into that range the next day? You have to train your ranges. Open. So the order of operations that I personally, this is what I preach, this is what I teach, this is what I do. Smash, release. So foam rolling, lacrosse ball work, myofascial release, start with that. Once the tissue's more pliable, then work on your flexibility, work on your stretching. Because at that point, the tissue's now more pliable, you're going to get more out of the stretch. Now that you've done that, you want to start your strength training in those end ranges of motion. I say strength training, really what I mean is your warm-up. Your warm-up should be just as much training as everything else, which is how we're going to segue into our next topic.
So I would like to just say one more thing about that, though.
Okay.
Now, for you athletes out there, you may be thinking, okay, how can I improve my mobility routine? So exactly what Dan said right there. Strengthen yourself in those ranges of motion that you have now gained and become more pliable in as a result of doing that deep stretching. Oftentimes at the end of the workout, people skip that. They like to feel that deep, nice stretch and then just head out on a good note. But there is a lot of work to do, and you want to make sure that your mobility routine is just as much as your training. So, it is your training. You should place just as much emphasis on that mobility work as you are lifting weights or doing any kind of, anaerobic, aerobic work, whatever it is. But yeah, you want to go ahead and...
Yeah, so to touch on that real quick, one of the things Omar and I were talking about the other day is physical therapy. So a lot of times when you hear physical therapy, you think, oh, fixing something that's broken. But what if I told you physical therapy is training? It absolutely 100% is training. It's a very low grade type training, but it has a lot of ROI, or return on investment. The idea with physical therapy is addressing very deep-seated root inefficiencies in movement or weaknesses in posture. So a lot of times, if somebody ends up in physical therapy, what do? They do the 6 weeks, and then they immediately go back into all the stuff they were doing before that got them hurt in the first place.
It's that folly of quick results. You have to keep that up because that is what's going to make you feel better. Keep moving, but move properly. You don't want to express bad movement and just continue to repeat that. You're just going to make it worse.
So one of the things to include in this segment in our discussion is your body, especially the less aware you are of it, and I mean, I don't care how tuned in you are, I don't care how on point you are with your warm-ups, your training, everything. There are going to be slight moments where you revert to autopilot while doing a motion or a movement, be it when you're training or in your everyday life. The motions and postures that your body automatically defaults to are the ones you spend the most time in. So, knowing that, if your autopilot mechanisms are a little bit off, similar to lines of code or DNA within your cellular structure, the more times that repetition of autopilot happens, the more chances there are for abnormalities or mutations. In this case, deviations in movement that cause stress in an undue way that's going to lead to an injury. So, again, focusing on your warm-up being something that you need to be very methodical about, you need to be very connected to, you need to treat it with just as much foresight and thought as you do your training. Because if you don't, you'll start to revert into autopilot, which means the body's going to go for favored movements, easier movements, and things that aren't necessarily going to get the joints mobilizing through healthy ranges.
Right.
So one of the most common ones that we see in the fitness field, especially with people who sit at desks, is all the muscles of the upper back become very tight long from holding up the weight of the head as it's huddled down. I mean, how many times have you sat here with your cell phone like this? Well, if you look at that from the side, do you see what's happening to all this musculature in my upper back? It's getting completely stretched out. Wait, you might be thinking, isn't stretching a good thing?
Yeah.
So, when we think tight muscles, there's two different types of tightness. You have what's called tight short and tight long. Now, there's different ways to express those. You could say tight contracted and tight
Tight contracted, elongated.
elongated. Thank you. It was like it's an E word. Help me, help me, help me.
So, like for instance, on Dan's, upper trap to lower trap, he would be very, what's that first thing you said?
Very elongated.
Very tight elongated.
Yes, tight long.
He would be very shortened though in a sternocleidomastoid, this thick band right here. And now you want to think in terms of reciprocity when it comes to mobility. If something is pulling, another is contracting.
Yes.
So, for instance, if your QL on one side is pulling you in, I said that wrong. But if your QL is pulling you in, this side is going to be stretching out. And so you're going to find that one side is compressed and one side may be either neutral or a little bit higher than usual. And truthfully, I don't think people understand how important their warm-ups are. I'm sweating when I'm on the foam roller.
You should be.
You should be sweating. You should be really placing emphasis on these release techniques and your resistance patterns when it comes to trying to solidify that new range of motion that we talked about earlier. But when it comes down to it, is you don't want to have this grocery list long mobility, exercise routine.
Right. So you want to pick the ones that you need to work on.
Right.
That's why it becomes just like your training, very specific to you. Mm-hmm. So if you're, let's say, a hockey player, you play hockey. Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of hip mobility that you're probably going to want to incorporate, especially with your warm-ups, because of how much motion happens in this entire area for you. On the flip side, let's talk about the desk jockey. You're positioned at your desk all day. Your hip flexors are in this chronically tightened state. Your upper back muscles are in this elongated state. So a lot of your mobility routines are going to be focused on getting yourself into the opposite postures that you spend so much time in day to day.
Yep.
If you sit at a desk for 6 hours every day, that's 6 hours in the anterior plane.
Right.
Are you honestly spending 6 hours? 6 hours in the posterior plane? Probably not. But that's why you've got these imbalances. That's why you're tight through the front. That's why you can't pull everything back into that extension.
Yeah, so guys, think about your lifestyle in terms of mobility. Where are you spending the most time in? Are you driving like this with your shoulder internally rotated and cranked all the way back here? Are you sleeping to one side and therefore hiking up one hip. And think about it this way, you're spending, like you said, 5-6 hours, even an hour can make a huge difference in the way your body feels. Your body is like clay. It is a structure that is constantly being molded based on how it interacts with the environment. So, that being said, just bring your awareness to your day-to-day tasks and try to combat that with, okay, maybe I am spending a lot of time in this position here. I actually want to now try to cue my lat to turn on a little bit better, cue my rhomboids and my rear delt, and so that I can get into that externally rotated position and therefore raise my arm fully overhead and express full thoracic extension.
Getting everything to move into a healthier range as opposed to coming up into the neck.
And even me sitting here, I actually am trying to bring my awareness to being in a better position. So, if that means setting alarms on your phone, setting reminders on your phone, just to tell you, hey, take 10 deep breaths and be cognizant of your current position. Whatever it is that you have to work on, just keep being aware of it 24/7 as much as you can.
I like that. So I gotta say, we said a lot of really good stuff today.
Said a lot of things.
Again, guys, this is our pilot episode. So where we go from here, we're open to adapting and growing. We've got a lot of great ideas, things we want to do, places we want to go, people we want to see. But at the same time, at this stage of the game, we're very open to suggestions and ideas. So definitely, if you've got questions or topics that you think would be awesome for us to cover in an episode like this in the future, DM one of us. Let us know. I promise you, we will write it down, and if it's a good idea, we'll run with it. And if it's a bad idea, well, we'll just ignore it. We won't put you on blast. Don't worry about that. There is no such thing as a stupid idea, just stupid people. Wait, hold on. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, guys, we really want to hear your feedback. If you've got things you want to know about, we want to help educate you. There is nothing off limits. Well, okay. No, I can't say that either.
For sure, there's some
within
some
the fitness, health, and nutritional realm. Almost nothing is off limits, so go nuts.
But hell yeah, guys! Thank you for tuning in. This definitely is the start of something big, and I hope this really helped impact the way you think about your body and raise some awareness to your problem areas. And if you have any nagging pains or you want some clarification on things we talked about or want some help, with anything in terms of health, fitness, nutrition, whatever, just DM us. We'll be happy to help or even make a whole topic on it and go from there.
Yeah.
But hell yeah, good show, good first take. Proud of that.
I think it's time for the shameless plugs. So again, I'm Dan, the Fit Ferret.
Omar, Live Om Fit is my Instagram handle. It's Live OM Fit. Pretty simple. People always get it wrong.
Hey, I thought it was a 0 for the longest time.
Dude, Om is a mantra. It's the Buddhist mantra. Om means balance, vibrational energy of the universe. And like I said, this is more about just lifting weights. It's the grand scheme of things in terms of Fitlosophy.
Yeah. So in other regards, we also have a nutrition and cooking show that we do on Sundays, and by we, I mean our lovely host, Danielle. She runs the cooking show. I just operate the heavy machinery. By that, I mean our awesome computer and camera setups. So if you've got nothing better to do on a Sunday, or if you want to catch any of the reruns, you can find them in our YouTube channel. Lots of great recipes. We cover a new recipe every week. We also have a subscription service, $5 a month. You get every recipe that we do each week delivered to you the Monday before the show. So that gives you a full 6 days to do your grocery shopping and then sit down and cook with us live. But it doesn't stop there. If you miss the show, you can just watch a rerun and cook at your own pace.
Hell yeah, meal prep. For all you bodybuilders that eat bland chicken and rice all day.
Woo.
Taking shots now. You better turn off that camera, dude. I'm about to call people out.
All right,
we didn't even talk about isolation exercises.
So thanks again, guys. This has been awesome. Great show. We really love doing this. And we'll see you again in the near future.
Thanks, guys.